Hello there to those of you who've decided to visit this webinar recording. This week's webinar focused on managing large datasets in Excel and was presented by my colleague, Deborah Ashby, whose expertise with Microsoft products are too vast to fully do justice to. I can say that she's a Microsoft Office specialist, a Microsoft certified trainer, and has been working in Microsoft training for over 20 years. I shall therefore leave you in her very capable hands from here on in. Please enjoy.
Welcome everybody to this afternoon's webinar on managing large data sets in Excel. I'm not going to ramble on any more about myself because as I said, James has done a perfectly good introduction, but I always think it's quite nice to be able to put a face to the voice. So that's me in case anyone is interested, and I will be hosting your session today. As I said, we're going to be focusing on managing large data sets in Excel and working with large data sets as well. The way we're going to structure this session is it's going to be all live demos. So I'm going to be opening up Excel, we're going to be jumping straight in there and taking a look at some of the tools and functions that we can use in Excel to help us manage large data sets, or large amounts of data, I should say. As usual, there's quite a few people on the webinar today, and I'm sure there's going to be a huge range of abilities as well. So we might have some people on the call who are very new to Excel, and we might have some real Excel gurus on the call today as well. So I generally try and cover all ends of the spectrum. So we will be doing some basic features, which if you know them, I apologize for that, but just hang on in there. We will get to some more advanced stuff as the session moves on. So let's jump straight in because we do have a lot to cover in the hour today. So we're just going to be working in a test or a demo set of spreadsheets that I've set up. So we've got the first one here, which is sorting data. And I'm very fortunate that when I was trying to scope out what to include in this session today, I sit next to the data science team, which is very useful because they are people who deal with data in Excel all day. So I asked them, what kinds of things they use, what things would be useful to include in this session, and that's basically what I'm basing this course off today. I'm just getting a little bit of feedback. Can you put yourself on mute, James? Is that all right? If it's you. I'm just getting some feedback. I don't know if anybody can put their microphone on mute. Maybe it's a man. No? I'll carry on, but I can just hear some feedback in the background. It's slightly distracting. I'm not sure where that's coming from or who that is. Okay, so let's get on. We're talking about managing large data sets. So the first thing that's really important is, and large data sets or large amounts of data is really a subjective term. What's large to some may not necessarily be large to others. So if you deal with, say, very simple spreadsheets, then a large data set might be 20 columns and maybe 100 rows to you, whereas somebody who maybe deals a lot more in data analysis might be dealing with thousands and thousands of rows. So it really is quite subjective as to what you describe as large data, but all of the tools that I'm going to show you now can be applied to smaller data sets and very, very large data sets as well. And the most important thing is when you are dealing or going to use tools such as things like pivot tables, which we're going to get into in a moment, for managing your data, it's really important the data that you start with, or the raw data, is clean and in a consistent format before you start to do anything. So before I show you any of this, you need to take a look at the data that you're going to be using and cleaning that data essentially. So I'm just going to show you a few little tips and tricks when it comes to cleaning data, just some very basic things that you can do to help get that data into a good format ready to move forward. Now, the data that you're using, it might sometimes be a spreadsheet that you've created yourself, such as this one just here, which you can see on the screen. This is all very nice. Everything looks very consistent. We have text in the text rows. We have numbers in our numbers rows. Not too much wrong with this spreadsheet, but we don't live in a perfect world. And a lot of the time, we might receive spreadsheets from clients or other people or colleagues, or maybe it might be data that's come out of another system, so maybe something like an Access database, and it might not necessarily be in a nice, clean, consistent format. So there's a couple of things that we can do in order to help us kind of clean that up. I'm just going to show you a couple of them very, very briefly. First thing I'm going to do is going to show you how to import data into Excel, which may or may not be something that you've done previously. So I'm just going to add a new tab. So at the bottom here where I have all my tabs, I'm just going to click on the little plus to add a new tab, and you can see it's added there, Sheet 1, and I'm just going to move that by dragging and dropping it just to the start to get it at the beginning there. I'm going to make sure that my cursor's clicked in cell A1 in the top corner, and I'm going to import some data that I've got from an Access database. Now, if you go onto the data ribbon at the top, this is where you'll find in the first group you have this Get External Data area. And this is where you would come if you've got data stored somewhere else that you want to bring into Excel. So you can see here immediately I can select from Access, from the web, from a text file. So sometimes if you have just a plain text file and you maybe have data stored in there, maybe it's separated by spaces or commas, because in a text file you can't really have tables as such, you can import information from a text file and tell Excel, what that data is separated by to get it to go into the columns. And there's also lots of other sources that you can use, mainly sort of database-y kind of things. Now I'm just going to use from Access, and it's going to jump me to my local drives where I can then go in and select my Access file that I want to use. So I've just got it stored, and I should have put this on the desktop to make it easier. I like to make things difficult for myself. Let's go through it, and there it is. So a file called Data Source. So this is just some information from Access, and I'm going to click Open. Now what Excel will do, it gives me a little Import Data dialog box, and it's asking me how do I want to import that data into Excel. So I've got a few options there. I can import it directly as a table. I can import it as a pivot table, pivot chart, Power View report, so on and so forth. So I'm just going to do Table and click OK. So there is my Access data imported nicely into a table, and it has this yellow table style applied to it. And how do we know when something's in a table? If you click in it and glance your eyes up to your ribbons, you can see you have the contextual ribbon table tools. Remember, contextual ribbons only appear when they are needed. So if I click on the spreadsheet outside of my table, that Table Tools ribbon disappears because I'm no longer working in a table. As soon as I click in it, it comes back again and gives me all of my options for my table. So I'll very briefly run through some of these. I'm sure we're all kind of used to working with tables. We have one ribbon, and that's the Design ribbon. So we have a Table Styles group where we can change the formatting on our table as we please. We have some table style options, so we can do things like remove the header row, add a total row, just by clicking these little options like so. I'm going to scroll back up to the top. I can do things like change the colors by banding the first column, last column, banded columns, so on and so forth. So those really control the look and feel of your table. You'll also see when data is imported into Excel as a table, it automatically puts these little filters on the headings just here, and that's controlled by that filter button in that Table Styles option. So if you don't need filters applied, you can just remove those just by on the filter button and it will take those off. I really like to have them on because I think they're so useful when you're trying to sort through large data, and we are going to cover quite a bit on using sorting and filtering options, because those are invaluable tools when you're trying to sort out your data and manage large data sets. We're going to look at some of the more advanced features of filtering and sorting as well. We've also got some other things over here, and there is something called remove duplicates, and we're going to come to this in a moment because we're going to talk about cleaning our data. So once we've imported it in, now my data is all clean, it's all very nice, we're just going to have to pretend that it's not for a moment, and we're going to take a look at a little formula that you can use to help clean up your columns. So the formula I'm going to show you first of all is something called trim, and you may or may not have used that before. Just out of curiosity, if you just want to type into the chat window, who is familiar with trim? Just type yes if you are and no if you're not. Don't worry, no one sees your answers, no one's getting embarrassed. A few answers coming in.
Lots of no's.
Lots of no's. Okay, lots of no's. That's actually the answer I was hoping for, because that means that I'm showing you something you don't know. So let's take a look at the trim option. Now before I do trim, I'm actually going to convert my table data just back into normal data. And this is something that's worth noting when you're dealing with data in Excel. If I've got a large spreadsheet full of data, the first thing I will normally do is put it into a table. Now I'm not sure if you know how to do that. If this data was just plain data, and I'm just going to switch it back to plain data just by clicking on this convert to range button just here. So it will say this will permanently remove the query definition. Do you want to continue? Okay. And that basically turns my data back into just regular plain data. So you'll see that now when I'm clicked in here, I no longer get the table tools ribbon because it's no longer a table in Excel. It is just plain data. It has some formatting on it still, but it's just plain data. Okay. A lot of the time I will always convert my plain data to a table by simply going to the home ribbon and clicking on format as table and putting it to one of these styles, which will then put it back into a table and give me those filters at the top, simply because I find it really useful to have those filters there. And sometimes tables are really, really useful if you're going to be doing things like pivot tables, or if you're going to be constructing formulas, because you can do things like name your tables, which you can then reference in formulas as opposed to typing in a long cell reference and things like that. So a lot of the time it is quite a good idea to format your data as a table. Okay, so just bear that in mind. We've converted it back just into regular data just so I can show you these clean options, because it works a little bit better when it's not in a table. So let's just imagine the scenario. We're going to take this column F as our example. So we've got some departments in there, so balance, work, dance, play, a couple of other things. And as I said, my data is in a good format, but let's just imagine that our data had maybe come across from a database and there was some extraneous spaces and things like that in amongst our data which we want to get rid of. Imagine if you've got 10,000 rows and then all of those cells contain extraneous spaces at the end or at the beginning. You don't want to go through 10,000 rows, backspacing, deleting them. There is a formula which will just quickly tidy up all of those extra spaces and additional things in there, and it's called trim. And the way that it works, or the way that I would advise you to do it, is outside of your table, or outside of your data I should say, click in any cell you like. So I'm just going to choose this one just here. And we're going to type in equals. Remember, equals is how we start all of our formulas. Again, I apologize if this is really, really basic, but I'm sure there's some people on here who are like, oh, I don't know how to construct a formula. So we always start our formulas with equals. I'm then going to type in the name of my function, which is kind of like a formula, so trim. Now whenever you type in any kind of function or formula, Excel will always try to help you out. So you can see it's pulled up from its function library, and I've got a little list there of any function that contains what I've typed in. So the first one there is trim. And I'm going to do open bracket. Excel is then telling me what text do you want me to clean, essentially. What text do you want me to trim? So I then go and select the cell which contains the text I want it to tidy up. So in this case it's going to be this one, F2. And I'm going to close my bracket. And I'm going to hit enter. And that will remove any spaces. If there was an accidental space before that word or after that word, it would remove that from it. And I can then just copy that formula down for the rest of my data, and it will copy it down. That is so much easier to do that than having to go in and kind of remove them manually yourself. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, well that's fine, but now I have this list of departments over in column J when I want them in column F. And this is what you need to do for this, because this is kind of a little bit strange. It took me a while to work this out. What you need to do is when you need to copy these and paste them back in essentially, but you can't do a direct copy paste. So if I was to copy what I've got there and then go to here and do a paste, it comes in a very, very strange format, okay? What you need to do, let's just backspace out to there, is you need to use the paste special option, and you need to select to paste only values, okay? So once you've copied it, as we've done there, and let me just make sure, let me do that again just to make sure that I have got that copied. Control C to copy. I'm going to go back to cell F2, And instead of doing Control V to paste, I'm going to go up to the Home ribbon and select my Paste button. I'm going to select the bottom half of this button, and I'm going to select Paste Special. And this is where you have numerous options when it comes to pasting. So I think some people sort of tend to forget that there's different ways that you can paste other than just doing Control-C, Control-V. You can select from here what it is you want to paste. So sometimes you might want to paste just the text but not take the formula with it, or just the values, or just the formats. So you can come in here and you can select exactly what it is you want to paste. So in this instance, we're going to do values and click on OK. And that's actually now pasted just the values, so just what we're seeing on the screen there. The reason why it wasn't working before was because there's a formula behind here, and then when we were pasting that, the formula was going with it, but then the formula didn't make sense because we kind of moved from column J. Okay, so we're just pasting the values. So just bear that in mind, the Paste Special button. So if you're doing a cut and paste and you find that it's not coming out quite correctly, it's always worth looking in that Paste Special button as well. So trim is one that I would recommend. All right, another one which I would also recommend when it comes to tidying up your data is checking for duplicates in your data. Again, this can happen very simply. You can have duplicate records, which maybe, again, if you've got 10,000 rows, you're not going to very easily be able to see if there's one or two records that are duplicates, particularly if they're not together as well. You know, sometimes it's easy to see if they're together, but if they're far apart, that's something that you can very easily miss. So Excel also has a really good way of very quickly removing duplicates in your data. So I'm very quickly going to cheat here. I'm just going to add in a couple of duplicates. I'm just going to copy this and insert that there, and let's do a couple. Oops. Let's do a couple down here. Do copy, and we'll insert that in there. So I've just got a couple of things in there which are now duplicated. So if I very quickly want to identify what those are and remove those from my data, again, just make sure that you are clicked in your data. Very important. Go to the Data ribbon, and you'll see in the Data Tools group, just here, you have a Remove Duplicates button. Okay, so when I click it, it's going to ask me, where am I looking for duplicates? So you could select just to look for duplicates in the date column, the year column, the month column, or you can say just look for duplicates in everything, which I'm going to leave them all selected, and I'm going to say OK. And you can see it says 2 duplicate values have been found and removed, 100 unique values remain. So very quickly it's now removed those duplicates, and if you have a look, those have now disappeared from my list. So a couple of very quick ways just to kind of clean up your data. So the whole point of that is really just to hammer home the point that before you start to do anything with, particularly with very large data sets, is make sure that you have a clean set of data before you start doing anything like sorting, filtering, pivot tables, power pivot, anything along those lines. Okay. Lovely. All right, let's move on to talking a little bit about sorting and filtering. And you're probably thinking, oh, I know how to filter. They're very basic functions of Excel, which we've probably, even basic Excel users have usually had to do some kind of sort or some kind of filter during their careers. We're going to show you those basic options again very quickly, but something I do want to focus on is some of the more advanced features of sorting and filtering, which you may not be as familiar with, which can again be really useful when you're trying to organize large amounts of data. So I'm going to move on to the next spreadsheet called Menu Sort. And in here we have some more data, so just some employee names, a little bit about where they work, their ID. You can tell these spreadsheets are American, so we have American phone numbers and hire dates and various different information about their employment. So this is the data that we're going to be using first of all to sort. Now when it comes to sorting, there are two areas really on the ribbons where you have sort options. And the first one is on the Home ribbon. And if you cast your eyes all the way to the end of the ribbon, we have an editing group. And you have your sort and filter options in there. Now you can see currently the top two options say sort smallest to largest, sort largest to smallest, and that's because my cursor is clicked in a numerical field. So Excel will recognize what data you have in those columns. So if I'm clicked in department, and if I then go back to my sort and filter, it's now saying A to Z or Z to A, as opposed to largest to smallest, smallest to largest. If I click in higher date, I get something different as well. I get oldest to newest or newest to oldest, because it's picking up what data you have in that particular field, which can be quite useful. So you have your basic sort options, and you also have a custom sort option, which we're going to be looking at in a moment, on your home ribbon. You also have sort options. Does anybody else know which other ribbon? I'm just going to throw this out to the crowd. Which other ribbon we can go to for sort options? Just type it into the chat if you know. Data, very good. Yes, the data ribbon is where we'll also find it. So we have a sort and filter group in the middle, and we have those same options. The bigger button there is the custom sort as well. Doesn't matter which one you choose, home or data ribbon, both exactly the same. So let's do some very basic sorting, and then we'll move on to some of the more advanced sorting and also some sorting which you may not have done previously. So this is all very, very straightforward. So if I want to sort my data by department, A to Z, fairly straightforward. I can go up to here and I can select the A to Z button, and it's now very quickly sorted my records by department A to Z. So you can see we have ADC, admin training, so on and so forth following through. If I then go across to the anniversary month and click in there and then sort those A to Z as well, it's now ordering them by alphabetical order as well. And you can see it's still kept the previous order. So from the department column, it's sorting primarily by anniversary month. So we have April grouped together, but it is also sorting by alphabetical order still in the department column over here. So you can use those to do little sorts like so. The other option that you have is the custom sort, and that's the bigger button just here, and it's also accessed from the home ribbon through custom sort just here. And this is perfect if you want to do sorts on multiple columns. So essentially if I wanted to say sort by department and then sort by hire date and then sort by something else. So this is where you want to build up multiple different sorts, is what you would come to custom sort for. So let's just jump across to multiple key sorting. I'm just going to click in my data. I'm going to go to sort and filter, and I'm going to click custom sort. And this is where you can build up your levels. So I'm going to say, first of all, I want to sort by, and what are we doing in here? Let's do sort by department. And I want to sort on the values. You see you have a few options in here, and we are going to cover these in a moment, but most of the time it's going to be the values in that column. And then you can select A to Z, Z to A, or custom list. And again, custom list we're going to be referring to in a moment. I can then add another level of sorting. So I can click Add Level and say, once you've done that sort, then sort by the next thing. So I might want to then sort by years. I still want to sort on the values, but this time I'm going to sort smallest to largest. I might want to add another level and sort by employee name. I'm sorting on the values, and again I might want to do that A to Z. And you can carry on going. You can add as many levels as you like into there, and I'm going to click on OK. And that is my data sorted in that order. So if you need to sort on multiple columns, it's that custom sort button that you want to use. So I think those things are probably what most people are familiar with when it comes to sorting, those basic sort options. I'm going to show you something now which you might not be as used to, which is sorting by custom lists. And I'm just going to make my spreadsheet a little bit smaller so we can fit all of this on. Let's move those out a little bit so we can see them. Okay. Now in this scenario we have the same data here, and if I just scroll across, we also have some other data over here, and you'll see I have here a little list which relates to the status or the employment status of these employees. So we have full-time, half-time, hourly and contract. Now I want to sort my list of data based on this custom list. So I want it to sort all of the full-time people first, then all of the half-time people, then all the hourly, then the contract. I can't do that by using the sort options on the ribbon. If I sort A to Z in the status column, it's going to put contract first because it starts with C. If I sort Z to A, that's not going to give me the correct thing either, and custom sort isn't going to give me the correct thing either, using A to, because that will use Z to A and A to Z as well. So what I want to do is I want to say to Excel, look at this list and then sort my data according to what we have just here. Okay, so this is what we call a custom sort, and you've probably seen it lurking within the custom sort option, and it's actually in here is the option that we, sorry, wrong one, here, custom list is what we want to select. Now before we do the sort, there is something that we have to do to get Excel to recognize our little list here. And this goes back to Excel and inbuilt lists, which again you may or may not be familiar with. When I say an inbuilt list, Excel has certain patterns of data that it recognizes. So things like days of the week. So if I wanted to type in the days of the week, I don't have to type in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I can just type in Monday, and then I can use Excel's autofill handle to drag down, and that will fill in the rest of the days for me because the days of the week are an inbuilt custom list, as are months of the year. So you could type in January, fill down, and it will automatically fill. That is what a custom list is, and I think there's 4 or 5 of them inbuilt into Excel. But you can set up anything you'd like as a custom list. So, you know, if it was a list of employees, maybe every month you have to type in a list of employees, you could set that up as a custom list, and then you would just have to type in the first name and you can drag down to complete them. So that's what we're going to do here for this. So I'm going to highlight my little list just there, and I'm going to go and set it up as a custom list. Now you don't necessarily have to have the options that you want listed in the spreadsheet. You can actually add them in when we get to create the custom list. But if you've got them there, if you just highlight them, it makes things a lot easier. We're then going to go to File, and this is going to seem a little bit strange. We go to File, and then we go down to Options, and into the Advanced tab just here. And if you scroll down towards the bottom, there is something called, where are we? I can never find it. Under here, under General, you have this Edit Custom Lists, and this is where you'll find those custom lists. So as I said, you've got days of the week and months of the year in 2 different formats. Okay, so this is where you can now add your list. So if you didn't have the data selected on your spreadsheet, you could select New List and just type in your list entries there. So you could do it on the fly. Because I've got it on here and I've selected the data, you can see it's automatically picked that up down the bottom here, those cells. So it means I can just do import, and it's brought in my list just there. You only have to do that once. You don't have to do it every single time. Once you've done it, it will stay there in Excel for you to use over and over again whenever you feel like it. And I'm going to click OK. And OK again. So now, not only could I use that if I wanted to, I could, you know, use that as we saw before, as a custom list to fill down, but what we want to use it for is when we're sorting. So now if I click in the status column, go to my sort options and go to custom sort, I can now say I want to sort by the status, I want to sort on the values, but instead of selecting A to Z or Z to A, I select custom list. And I can then say, please sort my list by this custom list, and do OK. And then you'll see it then sorts my data with all the full-time followed by the half-time, which is quite a long way down I think, so on and so forth. Okay, so that's another way to use that sort feature and really get it to sort how you want it to sort. Okay, something that not a lot of people are aware of when it comes to sorting. A couple of other things, I don't want to spend the whole entire session on sorting, but a couple of other things, other ways that you can sort, advanced options. So this is sorting by color as well. So again, if you receive a spreadsheet where you have maybe certain things highlighted, so you can see here we have Keith highlighted in yellow, then we have some names in blue, some in green, some in red. We can group all those together by using sort, by sorting on the cell color instead. And again, once you've done this a couple of times, you can probably see how it works. So we're going to click in our data, we're going to go to sort and filter, and we're going to go to custom sort. Now I'm going to add in, because there is, I think there's 5 colors, there's 4 colors in this spreadsheet, so I'm going to add 4 levels first of all. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to say sort by employee name. I'm just going to put employee name in all of these because it doesn't matter so much what you have in there because we're sorting by color. But this time we're going to say sort on cell color. And I'm going to change that for all of them. And then it will pick up any colors that are in the spreadsheet. So you can say sort on, so if you want the red ones first, you can do that, and then the blue, and then the green, and then the yellow. Now don't forget, aside from those which are highlighted, we have all of the rest of our text which isn't highlighted. So you want to make sure that you do add a level for that as well, for anything that doesn't have a color attributed to it. This time we're just going to say sort on values A to Z, okay, for all the cells which don't have a color. And we're going to click on OK. And that's just a quick way of grouping all of those together as well. Similarly, you can see that we have in the compensation column, we have icons. So you could do this exactly the same thing for that. And I'm not going to linger too long, so I'm hoping that you're getting the idea here. Again, if we go back to custom sort, and we're going to delete these levels. And this time, I'm going to sort on compensation, but I'm going to sort on cell icon. So maybe I just want to group all of the compensation that's gone up together. And then I might just also want to group or see, first of all, the compensation that's gone down. And click on OK. And that will group those together as well. Okay, so different ways that you can use sort, which you might not be as familiar with. So lots of different things that you can do in there. Lovely. All right. One more, which I'm going to show you before we move on to filtering, because I think this is actually really useful because this doesn't get talked about a lot either, and that is sorting from left to right. So essentially doing a column sort. So whenever we do a sort the traditional way that we've just been looking at, it's basically doing a row sort. So it's not very often that you do a column sort. So for example, we have here running across the top the names of various different cities in the United States. So I might want to order my columns alphabetically. So I might want Albuquerque to be first. So I want my sort to go across. And you can do that very simply in Excel. The first thing you need to do, and this is really important, where you highlight plays a big part here, because trust me, I've highlighted the entire table and done it. It doesn't work. It looks very strange. You have to make sure that you highlight just the columns that you want to sort. So don't highlight the entire thing, just highlight the columns that you want to sort, like so. Okay, I'm not including item in that because item needs to stay where it is. I don't want that to move into alphabetical order. I then go to sort and filter and custom sort, and this time I select the options button. And you can see here, by default it's top to bottom, so that's doing a row sort, but we're going to do left to right. And we're going to say sort by, and this time it's asking you which row do you want me to sort by. So I want to sort by row 1 on the values, and I want them A to Z because I want Albuquerque first. When I click OK, that's going to give me my column sort. So again, something which you don't hear as much about, column sorting. Lovely. All right, let's close that spreadsheet down and move on to the next thing. So I'm very quickly going to whiz through some filtering. And we're going to do that on the filtering spreadsheet. So again, we did briefly look at filters, and as I said, when you put your data in a table, it will automatically give you those little filters at the top. However, if you don't want to put it in a table, but you still want the filtering options, just make sure that you are clicked in your data, and then on that data ribbon you have your filter icon just there. So when you click that, it's going to give you your little filter headings at the top. And again, I'm sure you're probably used to using these, but again, if we just very quickly run through the basics, so if I want to filter my data, particularly if I've got a large amount of data, I can click the drop down I can go in and I can select exactly what it is I want to see. So maybe I just want to see the information for a couple of departments, not all of them. I can untick and I can select the 2 departments that I want to see information for, click OK, and then that filters out and I just get the information for those departments. You can always tell when you've got a filtered list or you're dealing with data that has been filtered, because you will see that once you have filtered a column, you get the little funnel icon on the top there. It is quite hard to see. I used to prefer in the older versions of Excel. They used to turn blue, but now they don't turn blue anymore, so it's a little bit harder to see, but you can see it's a little funnel just there. However, what does turn blue are your row numbers. So you'll see that if they are blue, it normally means that you've got some kind of filter applied, and they normally don't run in order because the filter will essentially hide those rows from you. So they're not deleted, they are just hidden. Lovely, so that is the basics of filtering. Now there are lots of different ways that you can filter your information. So let's move across to text filter. Again, as I said, Excel will recognize when you have filters applied, it will recognize the kind of data that you have in that particular column. So again, if I'm clicked in department and I click the drop down, you'll see I have the option for text filters. So aside from my regular filters where I can just deselect or select the items I want to see, I can be a little bit more specific by selecting text filter, and I can say things like equals to, does not equal, begins with, ends with, contains, does not contain, and I can even do a custom filter if I wanted to. Let's do this on, let's do it on the employee name column actually, because that's quite a good one. Let's go to text filter and let's do ends with. So all of the names in here are in the format of last name, comma, first name. So I want to pull out everything that ends with Rick. And if I click on OK, let's see what that's going to do to our data. So you can see now it's pulled out anytime it finds the string Rick. So I've got people called Rick. I also have people called Patrick and Frederick in there as well. Okay, so you can use those text filters to filter out other things. If you're looking for something exactly, you could do equals to or does not equals to. You could do something like, let's just clear that filter. In department, I might want to do something along the lines of does not contain the word train. I know there's quite a few departments which have the word training in them, so I'm going to take that out, and I know the filter's been applied because I have my blue lettering in my rows, and I can see that some of them don't follow on, so I know that that information has been filtered out as well. Okay, so you do have text filters as well. The same thing works for dates and numbers as well. So if I just move across to the date filter spreadsheet, and if I click in higher date and apply my filters, I could do the same here, and I get different options. So I can now filter for everything that has a date of tomorrow, today. There's all different kinds of options that you can have in there. I could do before equals between 2 dates to filter out that information. So maybe I want to see all the records of employees who were hired between 2 dates. I could do that as well. And the same thing works for filters also. So if I was in the compensation field and I apply the filter, oops, let's move that across, I now get options for number filters, so equals, does not equal, greater than, all of those kinds of things. So I might want to pull out everybody who has compensation greater than 50,000 in there, and I can very easily do that just by typing in my number into there. Okay, so those are custom auto filters that you can use also. Does anybody have any questions at this stage? If you just want to pop anything into the chat window just before we move on to the next topic.
Thus far we've had a couple of questions, but they've been answered as you've gone along. They've been clarified already. So that's good. I mean, it may be useful for people to know whether or not you can trim data for the entire sheet at once, or only trim by column at a time.
That is a good question, actually. I was looking at this the other day. I haven't found a way to trim the entire... I'm sure there is a way that you can do it. When I actually had the question the the day because I was thinking if I've got lots of columns, this is going to take me forever. And I was still playing around with it. I didn't find a way to make it work, but I will look at that again this afternoon, and what I'll do is, I'm sure that there is going to be a way that you can do it, but I couldn't do it when I was fiddling around with it yesterday. So what I'll do is after this session, I'm going to carry on playing around with that and have a little Google, and I'll send that in an email to you if and when I find the answer.
Another question is from Samuel Cliff. He was wondering, if you have a long country list, for example, and you start typing Italy, that comes up. What about if you then want to choose France and add a few more countries using filters on the fly?
So is he talking about creating custom filters? So if you have a long list of countries, so say you have Italy, Denmark, England, whatever it is, and then you fill those down, can you add them on the fly? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
With regards to the custom filters. Yeah. Now the question is, how do you create... okay, sorry, no, that's from Lynn, that's the question. But yes, that's exactly what I think the question is.
I'm just trying to think if you can add them on the fly. I think you can. I'm sure I've done that in the past. Let me leave that one so we can move on with the content, but I'll make a note of that. I think you can do that is the answer, but let's leave that to the end and then we'll have a little look. I just want to carry on with the content, but that's a great question. Lovely. All right. Let's move on to the next topic. So the next one we're going to focus on is, again, dealing with data, and we're going to come out of this spreadsheet and we're going to jump across to another demo file that we have. And in this one, we are going to start to look at pivot tables, which is probably the biggest tool when it comes to managing large data, particularly if you're somebody who does a lot of data analysis and you're dealing with huge data sets. So pivot tables, again, seem to strike fear into the heart of people. They're actually very simple, a very powerful tool, and it just allows you to manage your data a lot better. And when I was talking to my colleague, she said this is the biggest thing when it comes to managing large amounts of data, is getting your head around how to use pivot tables. So let's take a look at it. I'm not going to do a pivot table with huge amounts of data because I want it to be fairly simple for you to understand the concept. The concept is the same regardless of how much data you're working with. So I could have 10,000 rows here as opposed to the few that I have, but the concept is the same. So again, I just have my raw data here, some departments, quarter, sales. This is a table as well. How do I know that? Because when I'm clicked in it, I've got my table tools icon and I can see I've got my filters at the top here. I always like to put my data in a table before I do a pivot table. The first thing again, as I would always do, would be to clean my data. I would also check for duplicates. So I'm going to jump across to my data tab. I'm going to do remove duplicates and do OK. And there were no duplicates found, so I know that's all good. So now I know that my data is fine and I can now put that into a pivot table. So pivot tables you will find on your insert ribbon, and you have the pivot table option is the first option on the ribbon. So let's click on pivot table. So it says choose the data that you want to analyze. So select a table or range. So you can see that it's picked up the data where I'm clicked. So as long as you're clicked in your data, it will pick up, and you can see by the little marching ants around the outside, the range that it thinks you're going to be using. Obviously, if that's incorrect, you can adjust it, but if you are clicking it, it will, in general, pick up the correct data. I could choose to also link to an external data source. So again, if I wanted to use that access file that I used at the start, I could choose use an external data source, and then I could go and choose that access file if I wanted to pull that into my pivot table as well. I could do that directly from here, but I'm just going to use the table of data that I have. It then says to me, where do you want the pivot table to be placed? So I'm going to put it on a new worksheet. I always like to keep my pivot table separate to my raw data. I find if I have them both on the same page, it can sometimes get a little bit confusing. So let's click on new worksheet and click OK. And this is basically your pivot table. So on the right-hand side, sorry, I'm not very good at my left and my right, I have to think for a moment. On the right-hand side, we have our pivot table field. So what this basically does is it basically looks at your data, it looks at your data headings, and it pulls those into your pivot table fields area. So we can see department, quarter, and sales. And then what we have at the bottom are 4 areas: filters, columns, rows, and values. And we can basically put our fields in any of these areas, and the way that we put these in will determine how our data is displayed. So currently the pivot table is empty because I haven't selected anything. As soon as I start to drag and drop these down to these areas, the pivot table will start to populate with data. And this is the beauty of the pivot table. It's easy to manipulate your data because you can just move the fields around to these different areas to get a different result. So it allows you to kind of dynamically look at data, and if you're dealing with large amounts of data, that's an invaluable tool to have. You can discard maybe things you're not interested in and really stick to those things that you are. You can summarize, you can do lots and lots of things with pivot tables. It's brilliant for large amounts of data. So let's start to move some of these down. So in the values field, I'm just going to add the sales data. I'm going to add the quarter into the rows, and I'm going to have my department as the filter at the moment at the top. So let's take a look at what that's done to our pivot table. So I can see here my data is now ordered by quarters, so I have quarters 1 to 4, and that's showing me a sum of all of the sales for each quarter. At the moment, that's for all I could, because I have my department as a filter, I can go in and I can choose to only display the sales data for all 4 quarters for the dance department just by selecting, and my data will dynamically change like so. I can do things, so if I think, right, okay, I want to view this in a slightly different way, I can go to my pivot table fields and I can drag maybe department to columns and see what that looks like. So now I get my data displayed in a different way. I now have my quarters are still in the rows, but now I have my departments in columns running across the top, and I can see that data and the grand totals as well. So you can really move these around. Sometimes you move them around and it just doesn't make sense at all, so it is a little bit of trial and error, but it really is a good way of being able to define. You don't necessarily have to show all of your data. You know, you could remove department completely. You don't have to have every field in your pivot table showing at once. Okay, let's just move that back to columns like so. All right, so that's just adding your pivot table and pivoting that pivot table around. You'll also see once you're clicked in your pivot table, you have pivot table tools at the top, which contains 2 sub-ribbons, so Analyze and Design. So your Design tab contains things which will, allow you to play around a little bit with the formatting of your pivot table. So I can add a style, I can add banded rows if I wish to. This is also where you can control things like the grand totals. So you can see here I have grand totals showing. And if I didn't want those there, I could turn the grand totals off, or I could just put them on for rows or columns. It all depends what you want to have them on for. If I had subtotals, which I don't here, I could also turn on subtotals. So subtotals might be more appropriate if I had my department in my rows as well. I think if I put subtotals on here, yep, so I can turn subtotals on and put those on as well. So it really depends how you've got your data displayed as to which ones make sense, but subtotals and totals are included in there. Let's go back to the Analyze ribbon. There's also lots of things you can do with the data that's in the pivot table. So for example, currently my data is showing the sum. So if I hover over, it's showing the sum of all sales for that particular quarter. But what if I want to see the average? Or maybe I want to see the count, or maybe the max or the min, or something along those lines. I can do that directly from here. I don't have to change anything in the raw data. If I right-click anywhere in my data, doesn't have to be anywhere specific, and go to Summarize Values By, you can see sum is currently selected, so it's currently showing the sum. But if I want to see maybe the maximum value, if I click Max, you can see here now, in the grand total, it's showing me the maximum value in this row, which is 70127, which we can see that it is. and the same here. Okay, so that will show you the maximum values. I could do the same if I wanted to summarize my values by average. It's now giving me the average of everything in that row. So this data, the raw data doesn't change, but this data will. So it's going to show you the average of all of your sales. So that's quite a nice little way of doing things as well, just being able to look at things on the fly. Just going to go back to summarizing by sum. You can also do things like from that right-click menu, and again, it doesn't matter where in your data you right-click, you have a show values as, and this can be quite useful as well. So there's lots of different options in here, but the one which I quite like to show is percentage of grand total. So if you want to see how that's broken down as a percentage, so what those sales were as a percentage of the grand total, I can see here the breakdown, balance, dance, play, sport, work, and what percentage of the grand total that is altogether. Okay, so those are worth having a little look at if you use pivot tables quite a lot. Something else that's really great for pivot tables are slicers, and these were new things which were introduced in, I think it was Excel 2013. I don't remember them being in 2010, but I might be wrong. It's been a while since I've used that. But yes, so slicers are another great way, and these are particularly good for making your spreadsheets readable. Again, making large data accessible for anybody that you send that spreadsheet to. So again, if you've got a very large amount of data in a spreadsheet and you plan to send that to colleagues maybe who don't have the greatest Excel skills in the world, and you want to make it as easy as possible for them to be able to pull out the information that they need, slicers are a great one for that. So I'm just going to change this back to no calculation. And I'm going to click on, again, if you go to the Analyze ribbon, the Insert Slicers button at the top here. And what you can do is, again, you can insert a slicer for any of your column headings. I'm just going to do one for the department at the moment and click on OK. And it will give you this little panel, and again you will get a ribbon for slicer tools, so you can format it if you want to so that it matches your data all nicely. And these are quite good if you're sort of building up a little bit of an Excel dashboard. And what these allow you to do is just very simply be able to change this information. So again, if I just want to see information for the dance department, I can just click on dance and that information changes. If I just want to see it for sports, I can do that. I can do multiple by holding down my control key and selecting two of them. So now I have dance and sport. So it's just a nice way of being able to filter that information very, very quickly, and you can add as many of them as you want. Some of them, again, don't make quite as much sense, but if I wanted to add one for quarter, I could do that as well. I might want to make it a slightly different color, and I can then filter for sports for quarter 4, and I've got my information like so. Okay, so really, really nice ways of being able to draw that information out. Something else that's really useful is this, let me just go back to the pivot table. Similar to slicers is insert timeline. Again, that was a new feature for 2013, and this is similar to a slicer, but it relates to data that is in date form. Now, I don't have any raw data in here that was in a date form, so I'm very quickly going to jump across to this spreadsheet here because I can see that we do have a hire date field. So this is quite a nice little recap when it comes to creating a pivot table, and again, we're going to see how quick it is. We're going to go to Insert. We're going to insert a pivot table. I'm going to create it on a new worksheet and click OK. I've then got all of my fields, and I'm just going to add in some information. So I'm going to add salary to the values field, and I'm just going to do department in the rows field like so. Now, because there is information relating to dates, a hire date, I could, if I wanted to, insert a timeline slicer, and it will pick up only the fields that contain dates. So in this case, hire date is my only option. And this gives me a timeline slicer, which you can make a little bit bigger. And again, it's just a nice way of being able to adjust or just show data. So if I just want to show data that relates to July to September, I can just highlight July to September in that way. So it's just a nice way of being able to filter out by date using a little slider. Okay, so another way to manage lots and lots of information. Lovely. All right, as usual, we run out of time so quickly in these things. We've got about 5 minutes left, so I'm very, very quickly going to show you, let's have a look. I'll very quickly show you a VLOOKUP, and I also want to talk to you a little bit about Power Pivot as well. Power Pivot, if you're not aware of that, again, that's something that was new in 2013. It's an add-in, so you might not automatically see it in Excel. I'm going to show you how to turn the add-in on, and Power Pivot is basically for people who deal with huge amounts of data, and we're talking thousands and thousands of rows. It allows you to do pivot tables, all different kinds of things, but it just makes it a lot more efficient and less time consuming on your resources, and you have lots of other things that you can do with the data, and that's the whole point of Power Pivot. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. I just very quickly want to show you a little VLOOKUP formula. I always train VLOOKUP. I feel like I train this function every single webinar, but the reason is it is such a widely used function. It's brilliant for when you have large amounts of data and you're trying to pick things out of that data. And it's also something which people do struggle with, and the only way to learn a VLOOKUP is repetition. So if you've been to one of my webinars before and you've sat through this exercise previously, hopefully this will be a nice little recap for you. And again, I'm not going to linger too long on it, but we are going to do a very quick VLOOKUP. So VLOOKUP is a lookup function which allows you to essentially say to Excel, find information from the table that I'm in, so from the cell that I'm in, look up that information in another table and return me a different value, or the value that I specify. So for example, we have a list of products in this first table just here. And what we're looking for is we want to fill in the department and the category for these products. Now I have the department and category information in another table, which I happen to have on this spreadsheet, but you could have it stored in a separate spreadsheet. That information is in here, and it also has the product information. So the key here is that we have pieces of information that are what's the word I'm looking for? Consistent across both of these tables. So the product is listed here and it's also listed here. So this is what we're going to use as our reference point, essentially. It's what we're going to look up in order to work out what the department and the category are. The first thing I always do when I'm dealing with VLOOKUPs is I name my tables, and this is, you don't have to do this, but it is so much easier, particularly if you've got a lot of data. So if you've got a lot of data, if I had 10,000 rows, when I'm constructing my VLOOKUP formula in a moment, I don't want to have to select A1, 2, and then look up how many rows I've got. I don't want to then have to type in A, 10,335. I would rather just be able to type in the name of the table instead of naming the range or typing in the range. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my entire table, and a quick way of doing that is click in your table and press Control A, and that will highlight the entire table. I'm then going to name my table. So if I go up to this field just here, so where it currently says E9, this is the name box. I'm going to click in the name box and I'm going to call this table Products. And I'm going to hit Enter to confirm that. I'm then going to click in my other table and press Control A to highlight that, and I'm going to call this, I'm just going to call it Result, and press Enter. So now both of my tables are named. It took me 5 seconds, very quick, and it's going to save me a lot of time. So now I'm going to construct my VLOOKUP formula to pull back the department information. So I'm going to type in equals for my formula. And there are 2 ways that you can do this, depending on how confident you are when it comes to formulas. You can just go and start typing in your formula and construct it entirely within the cell. However, I would recommend that if you are not that familiar with formulas, that you do use the little function helper thing that we have. So on the formulas ribbon, I would recommend that you use insert function just here. First thing you need to do is find the function you're looking for. So you can type it into here. So VLOOKUP and click Go, and there it is. So we're going to double click, and this kind of helps you. So it sort of lays out the function arguments a little bit nicer. So it's saying to me, what is the lookup value? So what am I looking up? So I want to look up the information that's the same in both tables. So I'm going to say look up bamboo armchair, cell A6. Table array, where do I want to look up this information? So I want to look up bamboo armchair in my results table. Okay, now because I've named my table, I could now just press F3 on my keyboard, which will bring up all of my named tables, and you'll see in there you'll have all of them. I unfortunately, when I'm on a webinar, I can't use my F keys because it makes the microphone go funny, so I have to just type in the name of the table. But you can just press F3 and select it from the list. I then want to tell Excel, from the results table, which column am I interested in? So I'm looking for the department. So this is the column that I want, column L. But we don't call it column L. The columns are numbered essentially. So in this table that we're looking up in, this is column 1, then we have column 2, column 3, so on and so forth. So I want it to look in column 2. And then it says range lookup. Now the argument here is either going to be true or false, okay, and it depends whether you're doing an exact match or an approximate match. So in this case we're doing an exact match. I want it to exactly look for the word bamboo armchair. I don't want it to look for anything that's kind of like bamboo armchair. I want it to look for exactly that. So I'm going to say on this one that means the argument is false, okay, and I'm going to click on OK. And it's pulled back to the department, and I can then use my autofill handle to double click and fill down. And we could do the same with category, and we can do it very quickly because I realise we are running slightly over. If you could just all hold on for 5 more minutes and we will get there. I'm going to do the same thing, but this time I'm just going to type the formula in. So you can see both ways of how to do the VLOOKUP depending on your level of proficiency. So I'm just going to type it in this time, VLOOKUP, bracket, and you can see we still get the little helper text underneath, so lookup value. I think I'm just going to make my spreadsheet, sorry, let me come out of there. My spreadsheet needs to be a bit smaller so I can actually see what I'm doing. There we go. So VLOOKUP, open bracket, so my lookup value, again, is going to be bamboo armchair, comma, and you can see now it's moved on, it's made table array bold, so now I would, again, I could press F3 if I was you. I have to type in my table name, so results, did I call it results or result? There we go, result, comma, column index number, this time 1, 2, 3. I'm looking up the category, so it's column 3, comma, we're still doing an exact match because we're looking for bamboo armchair, so that's false. And there we go. So very, very simple, and I can copy that down like so. Okay. The different way of doing it, and as I said, it depends whether you're doing an exact match or approximate. If I move across to approximate spreadsheet, this is how you would use approximate, so that would be that true. It's exactly the same way to construct the VLOOKUP, except you're using the true argument on the end for an approximate match. So in here, I want to look up the reduction rate for these items. So I basically want to say, look up the subtotal in this table and provide the reduction rate. So the first one here, 1,363, that's not going to exactly match anything in this table. It's between 1,000 and 1,500. So it's not an exact match that we're doing. It's approximate. So that is where that true argument comes in. So very, very quickly, again, I'm just going to highlight my table, and I'm going to give it a name, and we're going to call this reduction. I'm going to highlight this table, and we're going to call it rate. And I'll just construct this very, very quickly because it's exactly the same as we've been doing. So VLOOKUP, I want it to look up the subtotal. I want it to look it up in the table rate. I want it to pull back the reduction rate, so column 2. But this time the argument is true because I want it to do an approximate match, not an exact match. And there we go. And then you can copy that down as well. Okay, so that's very, very brief VLOOKUPs. Okay, really, really useful tool as well for pulling things out of large data sets. Now, just to finish up, because I realise we are 6 minutes over time, I just wanted to very quickly demonstrate or Power Pivot to you. I think this would be good to do a webinar on in the future going forward, would be to do a little bit more in-depth on how to use Power Pivot and some of those more advanced features in Excel. I think that would be actually a really good webinar that we can do in the future. But just to kind of introduce it to you, if you've never heard of it, as I said, it is a really powerful utility that was added in 2013 that is particularly useful if you're someone who deals with lots and lots and lots of data. Now, just so you get an idea about Power Pivot can safely handle 100 million rows of data, which you're not going to be able to handle in a regular Excel spreadsheet. It would crash well before that, and that is where Power Pivot comes in. Now, you can probably see, looking at my screen, I have a Power Pivot ribbon at the top here. That's not there by default. As I said, it is an add-in which you need to enable in order to be able to see this ribbon. So let me just show you first of all where that is. If we go to File and we go down to Options, and you'll see in here you have a section for add-ins. And what you want to do is down at the bottom where it says Manage, you want to make sure that you've got COM add-ins selected there and click on Go. And this is where you'll find it if you have the add-in there. So Power Pivots, you want to make sure that that has a tick in the box next to it. That will enable the Power Pivot ribbon, and you will then see Power Pivot up here. Okay, and basically, as I said, I'm not going to go into this at all, but I will give you an idea as to what it is, and I've got all the major points written down here. So basically, it's a report building system with benefits that go above and beyond the power of Excel. It uses a very similar interface to pivot tables, so it's kind of familiar to people, and it's great for managing large data sets and for fast calculating. So if you can imagine, if you've got 100 million rows of data, calculation speed would be terrible in Excel, or would be a lot slower, but in Power Pivot it's actually very, very quick. It's also good for if you import large files into Power Pivot, it reduces those file sizes. You can connect to multiple databases, so if you have data sets spread across different databases, you can pull them all in as one into Power Pivot. It does have its own formula language called DAX, which is something which, if you really get into Power Pivot, you kind of have to learn a new formula language. Again, we're not going to get into that, so don't worry too much now. But I will just show you very briefly. Everything in Power Pivot starts by clicking on this Manage option just here, where you go away and you pull in the data that you want to use. So I could go in and pull from, let's have a look, I'm going to pull from that Access database again. I'm just going to browse for that file that I had saved off. Which is just there. And I'm just going to click Next and Next just to pull it through. And it'll go through and it will import. And now all of that data is imported into Power Pivot. So we're now working outside of Excel essentially, even though it looks very Excel-y, in the Power Pivot application. There's lots of different things that you can do in here, pivot tables, all different kinds of things. I can pull in information from other data sources, and it's just a really, really powerful tool. As I said, I just wanted to very briefly show you that, but I think this would be a good subject to do an advanced Excel webinar on going forward. So if you think that would be useful, maybe just a little quick straw poll to finish off with. Who thinks that that would be useful? Does anybody have a requirement in their job for anything like that? Yes, we've got a few yeses coming in. Fabulous. I will make sure that we add that to any advanced webinar. Fantastic. All right, I'm aware that I've run 10 minutes over. I'm really sorry about that, everybody. Sometimes that happens because these are all bespoke training courses that we can't always judge how long they're going to take right off the bat. But I hope you picked up some things that are interesting in there, some things that you've learnt. Again, just if you just type into the chat window if you learn anything new in the session today. Yes, excellent. Any final questions before we finish up? I know there's two that I have to answer. I'm going to go away and I'll respond to those via email, which we can send to you. Do we have any final questions?
I think that the questions that we have are probably better to answer via email, because I'm not entirely...
Are they specific? Okay, all right. So if you didn't hear that, I think James said that the couple of questions that we've got come in are better to respond via email because they're very specific. So what we'll do is we'll round up all of those questions, including the two that we had earlier. We'll type those up in an email, and then we'll make sure that we get that sent out to you. But that is all from me. I thank you very much for attending, and I look forward to talking to you again. I will hand you back over to James. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, everybody, for attending this week's webinar. From the answers in the question box, it seems like everybody's got a lot from it. I do every time I listen to it, or listen to Deb rather. So yeah, thank you very much, everybody, for attending. That'll be it for this week. But please do look out for a Power Pivot webinar, because I think that will be really useful. And certainly from the responses we've had here, it's something that we'll try and put into place as soon as we can. So thanks a lot, and we'll hopefully be back with you very soon. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.